Hello, I'm Jerry Fort. I'm gonna, I almost said review. I'm gonna read a story out of this book. It's called The Scary States of America, 50 Weird and Terrifying Stories, one from each state based on true events. This is a book by Michael Teitelbaum. In Indiana is the story I'm gonna read this time, or the state I'm gonna read about. Let's see what happened in Indiana. I just read the one before this one. I don't know if that's the order that they're going to upload or not, but it was about a woman that killed her children, threw them off a bridge because the man that she wanted to marry didn't want children, hated kids. So she killed him, killed the kids, and then she went back to the man and saw her all bloody and was disgusted and told her to get out of here. So she killed herself and threw herself off the bridge as well. So here's another bridge story. I just randomly went to this. It's kind of funny. It's called Edna Collins Bridge. I'm not sure what it is about ghosts and bridges, but it seems that in every state there is a strong connection between the two. A number of people from Indiana have written to me about the Edna Collins Bridge in Clinton Falls, but Andrew McKenzie told it the best. Here's the story he sent me. I wouldn't be surprised if you've heard this story before, Jason. Everyone in Putnam County knows the Edna Collins story. I even gave a class presentation on it in the 5th grade. Here's the background. Edna was a happy 10-year-old girl who lived with her parents in Clinton Falls in the 1920s. She was a free spirit who loved nothing more than to explore the rivers and woods with her dog, Tippy. Edna's parents made frequent trips to nearby Greencastle in their brand new car to go shopping. When she was very young, Edna looked forward to these trips. She enjoyed exploring the stores with her folks, but soon her sense of adventure and her love of nature came to outweigh her interest in shopping, and so she and her parents worked out an arrangement. On the way from Clinton Falls to Greencastle, the family would drop Edna and Tippy off on the far side of the covered bridge they had to cross. She's 10 years old, and they're dropping her off to go running in the woods, adventuring by herself. That just does not sound like a good idea to me. The family would drop Edna and Tippy off on the far side of the covered bridge they had to cross. She was allowed to play along the edge of the river and to hike into the neighboring woods, but she had to remain within earshot of the road. It doesn't matter to me. It's still dangerous. When her parents reached the bridge on their way back, they would stop and honk their horn 3 times, the signal for Edna to rejoin them for the ride home. This worked fine for many months. Edna enjoyed her time exploring the woods and river with Tippy, and her parents were pleased to foster their daughter's sense of independence and trustworthiness. They honked and she appeared, except for the last time. One afternoon, Edna's parents dropped her off as usual on the far side of the covered bridge and then headed off for their day in Greencastle. Excuse me. On the return trip, they stopped at the bridge and honked 3 times. No sign of Edna. They waited a few minutes and then honked 3 more times. Still no Edna. After the 3rd round of honking, Tippy came scrambling up the riverbank, dripping wet and barking frantically. Hurrying from their car, Mr. and Mrs. Collins followed the agitated dog down the bank and along the river. A few hundred yards away, they spotted a piece of red material caught on a branch, dangling over the raging river. Snatching the material from the branch, Mr. Collins was horrified when he recognized it as a piece of Edna's jacket. A massive search was organized, but the little girl's body was never found. It was concluded that despite being a good swimmer, she had gotten caught in a powerful river current and had been swept away. I mean, people that are professional swimmers have drowned. You know, when you're in turbulent water, you know it's a force. You can't hardly fight that. So, her parents, who had no other children, never recovered. The entire community was devastated. For months after Edna's death, drivers would pause at the bridge and honk their horns 3 times. They did this partly as a tribute to Edna, and partly in a rational hope that the little girl might hear the horn, as she had so many times before, and come running to the car. Eventually, the town board voted to name the bridge after Edna Collins. Shortly after the naming ceremony, a couple driving across the bridge honked their horn 3 times. Glancing in their rearview mirror, they saw what happened to be a little girl scrambling up the riverbank, stepping onto the bridge and waving at them. She was soaking wet and wearing a red jacket with a large section torn away. Leaping from their car, the couple raced across the bridge, but the girl had disappeared. This phenomenon has occurred again and again for decades, the girl appearing to various locals. I drove over that bridge hundreds of times with my parents, and then by myself once I got my license. It was like a ritual. You stopped, you honked, you waited, you drove off. Nothing ever happened. And I always felt like a moron sitting there waiting for a dead girl to show up. Okay, so here comes the creepy part. I swear, Jason, this is no hoax. I wouldn't waste your time with a phony story. One night last summer, I was driving around in my truck with my friend Jack and his cousin Matthew, who was visiting from Alabama. We were supposed to meet these girls and go to the movies. Jack started bragging to Matthew about the bridge and how terrifying it is. Matthew wasn't impressed. He said they had a bridge in his town called Crybaby Bridge. Whoa. That kind of confuses me because if I remember correctly, Oklahoma has one called that too. Where's this kid from? Alabama? I'll have to check on that. And then thought it was supposed to be haunted. Matthew had been there hundreds of times and had never seen a thing. I have to agree with him, Jack, I said. People who say they've seen a ghost are either lying or insane. Okay, said Jack, then let's go out there and put Edna to the test. Jack, we're meeting the girls, I said. I don't want to be late. I don't want to miss the start of the movie. Matthew agreed, but Jack just wouldn't let it go. I don't know what's wrong with him sometimes. Finally, we drove out there and stopped my truck in the middle of the bridge. Turned off the engine, rolled down all the windows, and honked 3 times. Nothing happened. I honked again. Still nothing. I told you this was stupid, I said to Jack in the seat next to me. Now let's get out of here. We're going to be late. One more time. Come on, said Jack, for Edna. Then he leaned over and pressed hard on the horn, letting out 3 long blasts. Honk, honk, honk. In my rearview mirror, I saw motion. I stared into my mirror and watched as a small figure rose up from the riverbank and climbed onto the bridge. I whipped around in my seat and saw that Jack was already peering out the back window. You 2 boneheads are in on this together, Matthew said, shaking his head. Scare their rube from Alabama. Nice try. Rube? Rube. I don't know what that means. Turn around, Matt, Jack whispered. Matthew swung his head around to look and gasped. Through the truck's back window, we could all see a little girl about 10 years old. She was wearing a torn red coat. Water dripped from her clothes and hair. I swear she smiled right at me. She waved like she was happy to see us. Then it got even weirder. Mommy, Daddy, she cried out. She started running toward the truck. Here I am, right on time. You see her, right? I asked Jack. You see her. I see her, Andrew. Let's get the hell out of here. Daddy, the girl screeched. Her face turned red, tears streamed from her eyes. Why won't you come for me? That was it. I fumbled for the ignition and then turned the key, but the truck didn't start. It's time to go home, Mommy, the girl shouted through her sobbing. She was right behind the truck now. Where's Tippy? I can't find Tippy. I was really scared and a little embarrassed. I mean, she was just a little girl, but I swear she was the ghost everyone always talked about, and she was so real. Again, I tried to start the truck. It coughed and sputtered, but wouldn't kick over. I looked up and jumped in my seat. The little girl's face was right at my window. Can you imagine her face at the window looking in, crying? She was pressed against my door. Blood trickled down her face. Why is she bleeding? Thought she just got swept away in the current. Unless she bashed her head on rocks or something. Daddy, she bellowed, sobbing hysterically. Chick, 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 throom. I guess they just, okay. The engine started up with a roar. I put the car in gear and took off. Then I glanced out my rearview mirror. The girl was gone. Why didn't you give her a ride home, Daddy? Matthew said. Oh, that kind of confused me. He's messing with the guy. Why didn't you give her a ride home, Daddy? Matthew said, laughing. Man, you guys pull some really elaborate stunts up here. Shut up, Matt, Jack snapped. That was not a stunt. It was that Edna girl, her ghost. I'll swear on Grandma's grave, okay? That must have been some family signal, because both of them got real quiet. I focused on the road and at the same time tried to wipe the sweat from my face and hands. When we pulled into the parking lot at the movie theater, I was stunned by what I saw when we stepped from the truck. Standing in the back of the truck with her arms open wide, blood still streaming down her face, was Edna. Daddy, she cried, staring right at me. Take me home. That's the end. She's not giving up. She wants them to take her home. Why didn't they just take her home? Find out what her address is and give her a ride. I mean, she's not holding a knife or anything. She's just a little crying ghost. You know? She don't understand. Okay. That was interesting. There was some parts of that kind of gave me chills. But all right. But that kind of interested me that Crybaby Bridge is I'm pretty sure, if I remember correctly, it's an Oklahoma story and a bridge here. But I'll try to put it in the description down below if I find out where it's at. I thank you all for watching. I appreciate it. If you're into the paranormal type stuff, you collect books of paranormal, you collect paranormal paraphernalia, buy one of these books. Support the author. They appreciate it. Excuse me. And I appreciate you watching. And I will see you all in the next one.